Ivor the Engine, The Foxes, by Oliver Posgate and Peter Firmin, read by Grandad. Not very long ago, in the top left-hand corner of Wales, there was a railway. It wasn't a very long railway, and it wasn't a very important railway, but it was called the Merioneth and Llantysilio Traction Company Limited, and it was all there was. Beside a wood, beside some fields, beside the railway, stood the house of Mrs. Porty. It was a very posh house with a lovely garden, and outside the garden gate, on the railway line, stood the locomotive of the Merioneth and Llantysilio Rail Traction Company, whose name, as I'm sure you have guessed, was Ivor the Engine. Is that all? No, there was Jones the Steam, Ivor's driver. Jones the Steam and Mrs. Porty were leaning on the fence, looking into the overgrown wood near the house. What were they looking at? They were looking at foxes. There they are, Mr. Jones, cried Mrs. Porty. 3 lovely foxgloves she has. Haven't you, Mrs. Fox? The fox did not answer. I don't think she even heard Mrs. Porty, because Mrs. Porty was whispering so as not to disturb her. In any case, she was too busy looking proudly at her 3 fat cubs, rolling and tumbling in the dust in front of their earth, to take any notice of Jones and Mrs. Porty. "Oh, I hope the fox hunters don't find them from here," sighed Mrs. Porty. "They've been out rather a lot lately." "Boop, boop, boop," went Ivor's whistle. "What is that for?" asked Mrs. Porty. "Oh, Ivor is keeping watch," explained Jones. "From where he's standing he can see Llaniogue Station. If any work comes in, Dye Station becomes very excited. He runs up and down the platform shouting about engines and engine drivers not being where they should be when they should be working." "Boop, boopity boop." "You'd better be off then, Jones," said Mrs. Porty. "Oh, by the way, when you are down at the station, you might just see if my new hat has arrived. It's for the Institute prize giving tomorrow. It's a lovely hat, all high with feathers and a sort of... Yes, well, I'll go and see if it's there," said Jones. "You look after the cubs now, Mrs. Fox, and you look after the foxes now, Mrs. Porty." Boop, chuff, 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 chuff. Jones swung into the Ivor's cab, and they rolled down towards Llaniogue Station. Dye Station stopped running up and down when he saw them. He was looking very cross. "Oh, there you are at last," he said. "Where have you been?" "This hat box has come for Mrs. Porty. Very urgent, it says. Deliver immediately. Handle with great care." "Oh, yes, it's a lovely hat," said Jones. "Oh, feathers and high, with a veil and... You'd better watch out. If head office came to hear of it, you'd be in trouble. Taking time off to watch foxes, indeed. And the foxes had better watch out too. The hunt is about today." "Oh, don't speak of it, Dye," sighed Jones. "Speak of it? I can hear them." They listened. Taroo, taroo! They heard the distant sound of the huntsman's horn and the baying of the hounds. "Oh, Dye, I can hear them," shouted Jones. "What shall I do?" "Climb on the roof," suggested Dye. Jones was puzzled. "What on earth for? They're not hunting me, they hunt foxes." "No, silly," said Dye. "Climb up so that you can see where they are. Quick, I'll give you a bunk up." Jones clambered onto the roof and held on to the chimney pot. "I can see them," he shouted. "They are heading across Pew's field towards Mrs. Porty's wood." "Isn't that where the foxes are, Dye?" "Yes, and they're heading straight towards them." "Oh dear." "There's Mrs. Fox's now, I can see her. She has left the wood and she's running away over the field." "Why is she doing that?" "I expect she's heading the hunt away from her cubs," shouted Jones. "Which way is she going?" "Down towards the bridge." "Boop," went Ivor's whistle. "Yes," shouted Jones as he jumped down. "And don't forget Mrs. Porty's hat." added Di, pitching the pretty hat box into Ivor's cab as he began to move. Chuff, 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 chuff. Jones and Ivor sped down the line as fast as his wheels would go. Through, through! The hunt, a pack of baying hounds followed by handsome horses, ridden by ladies and gentlemen in scarlet coats, was streaming across the fields, and far ahead of them Mrs. Fox was streaking like a red flash across the grass. "Stop by the bridge, Ivor!" shouted Jones. The fox was running beside the stream as Ivor slapped on his brakes by the bridge. "She's seen us, be ready," whispered Jones. The fox swerved and ran up the bank towards them. "Now!" shouted Jones. The fox vanished into a vast cloud of steam which engulfed Ivor, Jones and the bridge. The hounds ran into the steam, the horses ran into the steam, but nobody could do anything until the steam cleared a bit. "I say, railwayman," said the huntsman, wiping his steaming eyes, "do you have to make so much steam like that? It's a bit inconvenient for us, don't you know?" "Oh, I was just blowing out the pipes a bit," said Jones. "We have to do it now and then, like sneezing, you know." "I say, railwayman," said the huntsman, "what on earth is that on your head?" "Oh, the hat, that's for the Institute prize giving tomorrow. It's a lovely hat, look, all high with feathers and a veil." "Oh, well, I dare say it's a very charming hat, old boy, but what we're looking for is a fox. You know a fox?" "Oh, I know a fox," agreed Jones. "Well, have you seen one, damn it?" barked the huntsman. "Yes, I did happen to see one, but I don't think she wanted to see you, do you, Ivor?" "Boop, boop, boopity poop," laughed Ivor. "Good day to you, gentlemen," said Jones. Chuff, 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 chuff. The huntsman watched Ivor move away. Jones waved to them, and the dirty feathers on his hat flapped about in the wind. "What an extraordinary chap," said the huntsman. "Oh, come along, Carruthers," said another huntsman. "We must find that fox." They did not find that fox. They searched all around the bridge, but there was no trace of it anywhere. Meanwhile, Jones and Ivor came down to the points behind the post office at Laniog. Mrs. Williams, the postmistress, threw open her window. "Oh, Mr. Jones, it really suits you," she cried. "Yes, it's a lovely hat," said Jones, "all high with feathers and "I can see that," said Mrs. Williams. "It's a lovely hat, but it isn't yours, is it?" "Oh, no, it's for Mrs. Porty," said Jones. "Why are you wearing it, then?" "Oh, you'd only laugh if I told you," said Jones as he opened the regulator. Boop, boop, chuff, 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 chuff. They moved away up the line. "I bet Mrs. Porty won't laugh when she sees a new hat," said Mrs. Williams as she closed a window. She was quite right about that. Mrs. Porty saw Jones the steamer come up the path carrying the hat box, and she met him on the front porch with a face like thunder. "Mr. Jones," she roared, "you're wearing my hat!" Jones looked very worried. "Now wait a minute, Mrs. Porter," he stammered. "Wait while I tell you what happened." "Where is your own hat, Mr. Jones?" "Oh, mine is in the hat box. It doesn't spoil so easily, you see." "Spoil?" roared Mrs. Porty, glaring at the grimy, wind-blown feathers on Jones's head. "That hat is completely spoilt already." "Well, it was the hunt, you see," explained Jones, "and there was nowhere else she could go, and wait a minute." Mrs. Porty glowered while Jones undid the ribbon on the hat box. Out leapt a cloud of tissue paper, Jones's old blue cap, and a streak of red fur. "Mrs. Fox!" shouted Mrs. Porty. Mrs. Fox shot across the garden and dived into the wood with her cubs. "Yes, you see, I thought you'd rather," stammered Jones. Mrs. Porty smiled. "Oh, yes, I do see. Yes, I certainly would rather. Yes, of course, I'm glad you did. And the hat." Jones took off the hat and gave it to her. "Yes," said Mrs. Porty. "I'm sure that would be perfectly all right with a bit of tidying up." And it was. The hat looked lovely at the Institute prize giving the next day. A bit blackish about the feathers, but quite lovely. The end.